Okay, hey everybody. Today we're talking all about budgeting, and we're gonna go through 4 budget hacks that you can do to start building the life of your dreams. And why are we talking about budgeting when it comes to building the life of your dreams? Budgeting is something that can just sound like, oh, that's not the last thing I'm gonna think about, not fun. Something we all often like to avoid, right? Budgeting is not something that many people get very excited about, understandably. Here's the thing, if you are someone who is feeling anxious about money all the time, if you're finding yourself like up at night or you can't sleep sometimes because you're worrying about paying the bills, if you are feeling overwhelmed with managing your finances, even out of control when it comes to your money, then getting the right budgeting system in place is an incredible way to start managing your money effortlessly. So it doesn't have to feel like a chore. So it doesn't have to feel like another thing on your to-do list, but can actually be a tool for freedom that helps you start building the life you want. And it can be very life-changing. So that you don't have to be worrying about money all the time, right? You can get some of that, you can stop living paycheck to paycheck. You can stop worrying about having to pay the bills and finally have financial peace of mind. That's what budgeting can do for you. So let's talk about first how I hear most people budget that I talk to in our community, and the financial coaching and counseling I do. So in the workshops, trainings I do, I always ask this question: what do you do currently to budget? I give people some options. Do you kind of do it in your head? Do you do it on a piece of paper, write it down here and there? Do you use an Excel sheet, or do you have a more developed system? And almost always, the majority of people say that they're doing it in their head or they're writing it down. And then there's a handful of people always that use some kind of like Excel sheet to organize their finances and budget. And here's the thing, when you do those things, when you budget in your head, when you write it on paper and you have to keep track that way, or even when you use an Excel sheet, whether it's Google Excel or whatever, I've seen that actually can make the process of budgeting and managing your money and your mindset around money, your relationship with money, actually worse and cause more stress and trigger what I call scarcity mindset. If you haven't heard of that term, it's basically that constant feeling that there's never enough, that we always have to worry about money, that, it's the worst case scenario is going to happen. We have to always prepare for basically being in that state of, of less and deprivation all the time. And budgeting can really facilitate that scarcity mindset for people. I know that was my relationship with budgeting for a long time when I first started. That it was something that felt really negative, that added stress. It wasn't a tool for freedom. So, we're going to talk about today how you can sort of pivot to making budgeting something that actually empowers you instead of adding more stress to your life. Because when you don't have a good system for your budgeting, it can actually cause more stress because it's taking up so much mental space. Whether you're doing it all in your head, which take that alone will take up a bunch of mental space that instead could be going toward how can I, come up with new ideas, how to make more money, right? Or how can I focus on the moment and the present and being with my family. Or when you're doing it on paper or in Excel, it's like you have to keep track of every single transaction and it's just really overwhelming. So I have seen those approaches again often make things worse when it comes to managing money and finances. And if that's the situation you're in, I totally understand you. Like I said, was in that boat for a really long time. I had had no experiences with personal finances when I started my personal finance journey back in 2013. As many of you in our community know, I was kind of forced to go figure it out because here I was with the love of my life, Mao, my now husband, who had just immigrated to the country. And he definitely didn't know how to navigate the US financial system, never mind, you know, things like figuring out how to get a driver's license and stuff like that. Simple things that immigrants have to face when they come to a new country. So We were in a really tough spot. We were definitely living paycheck to paycheck. We're constantly worrying about money. We're constantly having to say, I can't afford it. No to opportunities, no to spending time with our friends, no to being able to visit our family, in Ecuador, all of the things. And I would try to manage it all in my head and bounce it all. And it was just a constant anxiety narrative going on, trying to keep track of everything. So that's what led me to exploring and investigating different approaches to budgeting so that I could try to get control over our situation and feel less anxious and overwhelmed. And that's what began our financial journey back in 2013, now 10 years ago. So yeah, I would spend so much time when I started. I started with the Excel sheets and the writing it down. And you'll hear some financial educators saying, when you're new to all this, like print all your bank and credit card statements and go and highlight them all and really, get to know what you're spending, which is a great tool for you starting to get awareness of what you're spending on, but not a very effective way, in my opinion, to budget because it just takes so much time and is so overwhelming and not, a very streamlined, effortless approach. So yeah, I would be tracking all the receipts. I was spending so many hours a week trying to keep track of everything and then go write it down, whether it was in my journal or in an Excel sheet. And every time we would go out and or spend a transaction on something, I would just be like, oh, another thing on my to-do list. I have to remember to add that to the Excel sheet. And it was always a guessing game. I didn't know where we were at. I didn't know, okay, are we really going to be able to cover the rent this month, right? It just felt super intense, super stressful. And any strategies I was trying at the time to budget just made me feel more stressed and felt like I was getting really controlling and having to just be really on it with every single dollar. It didn't feel good. Every time I purchased something, again, it was just another thing on my to-do list to try to calculate in my head or add to the Excel sheet. So fast forward, we tried, it feels like a million different strategies with budgeting. We have explored teaching a lot of different strategies with budgeting with our students, particularly in our main program, Immigrant Finance School. And we've landed on an incredible strategy that has worked super well for our family and for many of our students, that does make things more streamlined, that does make things more effortless, that automates a lot of it. And it's really about having a system. Systems are our best friends when it comes to financial planning, starting a business, organizing your life, because systems are what help you take the overwhelm out of your brain that you're carrying all around and just put it down in like a process that can repeat, that you don't have to be balancing in your head or writing down constantly. So I'll share some tips in a moment that I've learned from trying these different strategies and from the approach that we use and we teach our students. And before we get there, just to make this really clear and give you an analogy to think about, budgeting in your head or in an Excel sheet with every transaction is kind of like if you go to the grocery store every time and you have no idea what you're going to be eating, right, for the rest of the week or the next 2 weeks. And so you end up spending like triple the amount of time that you need to at the grocery store trying to figure out in your head what you're going to make. And then you spend like triple the money you need to because you don't really know exactly what you're going to make. So you're kind of trying to cover your bases and you're just kind of at some point grabbing random things. And then it gets very overwhelming. And trying to make up what you're gonna have for your meals, and when instead you could have like a really beautiful meal planning and prep system where you know exactly what to buy each time. You only buy the ingredients that you need. You're gonna have what you need to make what you want to make, that's going to be delicious and nutritious, and you're not spending any more time than you need to or overspending at the grocery store. That's kind of what this is like, what I'm talking about in terms of making a system for your budgeting, and building it in a way that's going to be based around your goals, right? So that's the first hack I want to talk about in terms of the 4 hacks you can use your budget for to start building the life of your dreams. So the first hack is to center your budget around your goals instead of around your problems. So many of us, when we think of budgeting, especially because they don't teach this stuff in school, in most schools, we think, okay, this is about, managing my debt and my expenses and my bills and my rent and the utilities, right? And what I have to share with family members and all that. And that's like the first place it starts where it feels like a negative experience because we're building the budget in that approach around what feels like problems rather than something we're excited about. So we reverse engineer that approach to budgeting. We teach something we call goal driven budgeting, where instead you're getting really clear on what your financial goals are. Say what you want your life to be like 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now. And narrowing down those goals so that we can make them like super achievable, right? And then building a budget around that while balancing the numbers to make sure that you can cover your expenses now, while also enjoying life now, right? Because if there isn't room for fun money to enjoy your life now, what's the point? It's like a crash diet, right? How many people have done a diet where you're depriving yourself and at the end, like you go eat all the pizza and all the fried things because you have been depriving yourself, right? So that it doesn't work when we do a crash diet approach to budgeting. So instead, the number one tip is for hacking this is building it around your goals and then working with the numbers to make them all work, which is something we can definitely help you with if you're having trouble making those numbers work together. We have some really good strategies and ratios for all of that. The second hack in your budget to start building the life of your dreams is to fit in abundance and reduce deprivation in your budget so that you're not overspending in areas that don't actually make you happy, that aren't in alignment with your values, right? And instead, you're spending the fun money, the money that's after the goals, after the expenses, for something that's actually going to give you a lot of joy and make you feel really abundant, right? So something we work on with our students is helping them get clear on like what is that number one thing that really does make you feel abundant and joy, and let's plan it in your budget and make sure every month that you are spending money on that, because when you do that, it reduces the temptation to go spend it on the stuff, the junk you don't need. Like how many of us have gone to Target to get one thing and we come out with $200 of shit, right? Excuse my language, that we don't actually need because we're not clear on, what really does give us joy and, what is in our budget and what room have we allowed ourselves to spend guilt free so that we can enjoy life. So we want to, within our budget, build in that those things that are going to make you feel abundant, they're going to give you joy, and it's going to reduce that temptation to go spend that $200 of shit at Target or whatever it is that doesn't actually make you happy, right? And this is how we can start transforming our budget so it is a tool to be not only moving forward our goals and helping us build the life we want to have, but also helping us enjoy the present and feel abundant and get away from that scarcity mindset, that feeling of lack and deprivation that is often associated with budgeting and crash dieting. So we can feel really good now, and it can be something sustainable that we stick with. The third hack here for budgeting to build the life of your dreams is to learn how to generate more income, learn how to make more money so that you're not so boxed in. At the end of the day, with your budget, even if you budget till your face turns blue and you're a perfect budgeter, you're never going to really advance your situation and build wealth if the total number in your budget doesn't change, right? So you can make sure all the bills are covered. You can make sure you're putting money toward your goals. You can make sure you're putting money toward feeling abundant now, right? But that those numbers are going to stay the same if we don't learn how to increase income. So when you learn how to increase income, this is just going to allow you to meet your goals faster. So you can pay off debt faster, you can invest more, right? And more is going to allow you to build generational wealth, right? For be able to be secure in retirement, be able to pass down generational wealth to your family, to your potential children or current children. to be able to buy real estate, right? And expand your assets and wealth even further. So we have to learn how to start the skill of generating income so that we can increase that total number in the budget. And that can look like as simple as a side hustle. That can look like doing some babysitting on the side or some tutoring, right? If you speak another language, right? Tutoring other students in your neighborhood in that language, right? Sharing a skill you have, like maybe you are really good at photography and you could start offering like engagement photos or new baby photos, right? There's so many things you can do, but a lot of people are not putting their attention here, especially when they talk about budgeting in terms of increasing income. They're just talking about reducing spending. And yeah, reducing spending on things that are not actually giving you joy, right? And you don't need to be spending money on is also an important strategy to have room in your budget. But you can only go so far, right? Increasing income is going to have a much more significant impact on your budget. So that's why we do a lot of work focusing on helping people learn how to start side hustles and businesses and monetize their unique gifts so that they can have more room in their budget and put more toward their goals, accelerate their goals to happen faster, put more toward that abundance now so they can enjoy life more now, right? So that is the third hack. And the fourth and final hack I wanted to talk to you all about today is to rethink budgeting as a tool that allows you to basically refine the life that you want to have. Your budget is an amazing source of data, right? Through your budget, you can see trends every month in what your habits and actions are leading to in terms of building the life you want, whether they're able to allow you to start moving forward your goals or even prioritize your goals at all. And if so, how much you're prioritizing them compared to other things you're putting money toward in your budget. So we can't get that information, we can't get that data unless we have a really good system that is easy, that's effortless, that we don't have to write down every single transaction or remember them all in our head. And instead, we can have that information easily accessible, automate as much as possible for it, and have a really good system to organize it all so that we know exactly where we're at all the time. And that data allows you to then check in on a month to month basis. And instead of spending all that time trying to keep track of the numbers and transactions, instead use a limited amount of time, right? Like an hour a month to sit down, look at the numbers and be like, interesting, this month I prioritized more, for example, gifts to my family than my goals, right? And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That person can reflect and be like, okay, that's actually one of my values, that's one of my priorities, that's one of my love languages, whatever it is. So that is in alignment with my values. So it can be a source of empowerment. If it's not something that's their values in this example, they can build awareness and say, okay, I realize that happened this month. Next month, I want to be a little bit more mindful of how much I'm putting toward gifts so that I don't get off track with my goals. Because the number one thing that really is important for me is investing for my kids' college education, for example, or whatever it is. So budgeting is this incredible tool that is actually the way you're able to implement the life you want to have. That's why I get so excited about budgeting when it can become something that you build that's a positive thing in your life, not something that just adds more stress and anxiety and overwhelm about money. Um, and so, another example I like to give is if you're really seeing that no matter what you do, you're feeling really limited every month and you're having trouble paying the bills, or maybe like 95% of your budget is going toward just surviving and paying the expenses now, that can be a really big wake up call that, okay, it's time for me to shift to increasing income. And that's something you might not realize if you don't have that system to be giving you that information, that data of where you really are. That's what happened to us, to be honest, that began our journey with online business, which was once we finally started getting hang of budgeting and got past the overwhelm of it all and built something that was more effortless to track. The numbers spoke for themselves. The numbers showed us that no matter what we did to reduce our expenses and our spending, we were still stuck. We were still not able to build the life we wanted. We were not in that time, not in a position where we'd be able to own a home or have kids. And those were the things that were the most important to us. So what did we do? We turned our focus to how can we increase income? And that's what led to my first side hustle, which was helping people review cover letters and resumes online on the side. And that was able to help us add an extra $500 a month to our budget, which was huge at the time for us. It was life changing. It allowed us to start saving an emergency fund. It allowed us to start investing. So it was truly life changing. And this is kind of an example of the power of budgeting and the data and the information you get from it so that you can make those changes and actually start building the life you want to have. So ask yourself today, knowing all of this now, do you want to keep budgeting in your head and having all that mental space taken up? Or do you want to keep, doing an Excel sheet or whatever you're doing, writing it down where you have to keep track of every transaction and it takes so much time that's causing actually more stress and overwhelm and causing you to be hard on yourself and be stuck in that scarcity zone? Or do you want to learn how to create an effortless system where your budget works for you as a tool to empower you and help you build the life you want that's moving your goals forward on a monthly basis? So if that's something you want to be pursuing, we are here to help you. We love helping people get this amazing goal-driven budgeting system set up. We actually have a free guide where you can check out how to build this. It's at www.internationalempowerment.com/budgeting. And we'll put the link in below in the show notes and the comments. And so you can check that out and get started applying some of these lessons I've taught you today. I'll wrap up with a couple key takeaways from the episode, summing up the 4 budgeting hacks to build the life you want to have. So number 1, budget on your goals, not your needs. Number 2, fit in abundance and reduce deprivation in your budget. Number 3, learn how to generate and increase income on your own. And number 4, use your budget as a tool to refine your goals and your reality so you can actually live the life you want to have. If you found this helpful, please take a moment to share it with one person today that it could help support. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you so much, and bye for now.